Welcome to the second devlog of the Northern Realms. Now, over the last few days I've been working on some pretty cool stuff for the project. Oh, it's already been 2 weeks. Well, I might as well show you what I've done then. I haven't done as much as I was hoping to do, but I have done some really cool stuff that I'm quite happy with. I began to work on the actual mechanics as well as fixing up some of the foliage systems for the game. So the first thing I did after the last video was set up a simple raycasting function. Now, if you don't know what raycasting is, it's where it shoots a line from a specific point in a certain direction for a certain length of time. When it hits the object, it will trigger a event that I set up that I can apply to any actor or blueprint that I build in the world. I name this interactable, so if the raycasting comes from the player and hits this object, it will trigger interactable on any of these actors or characters that I've applied it to. This way I can set up simple things like chests, items you can pick up, interactions with other characters, rather than setting up a function, just a raycasting for every single actor or blueprint that I have in this world. By creating the function, I can simply just shoot it off whenever I click E, and it will interact with the object without me having to worry too much about it. And that way I can cause loads of different events to happen if certain things are interacted with, if you have checking if you have certain items when you interact with them to make other things happen. And that way it gives me a lot of options to do when it comes to the gameplay of the game. But after making that simple raycasting function, I knew I needed to do a lot of work to do on the gameplay mechanics, so I decided to start with something more simple. Just finish off the foliage work that I was working on in the last episode. So I wanted to create more bushes and grasses and just a bit more detail so the landscape around felt a bit more full. As well as this, I needed to edit the nanites and lots for the foliage to help the game just run a bit better. I was still having performance issues when I was running the game. So I separate the landscape into subdivisions. This allows it so only 4 chunks of the landscape will be loaded at once. That way it's not trying to load in the entire landscape, because with the fog system you can't actually see the entire landscape, so there's no point trying to load that in and trying to render that when the player cannot see it anyway. By editing the nanites and lods, I managed to make the trees and the plants run a lot better, but the way the plants looked just felt wrong to me. They were very spread out, they were very simple, and they didn't look natural. This is when I decided to start turning to other games for inspiration. I looked at some photos of some natural temperate landscapes, as well as looked at some games that have a bit more of a temperate and colder environment in them, so I could see how they kind of sorted their grass and like landscapes and their foliage. I decided that simply all I needed was just a few grass textures scattered about the world. I tried to add a snowy texture to this, but it caused a lot of issues from distance because it made the plants look black from far away, and as you approach they gain that snowiness to them, but it caused a lot more issues than I think it is worth. It didn't look as good as I was hoping either, so I decided to remove this from the plants. I did also create a small grass/snowy material that just the snow that is in the normal world, but with small speckles of grass in it, that I will add under the grass and trees along the landscape, just to add a bit more of a natural feeling, like some of the grass is a bit too short to be seen and like, leaves are falling from the trees, and just add a bit more to the landscape so it feels a bit more realistic. Now when it comes to the landscape, I immediately put down some plants and bushes that are just scattered around. I knew I wanted herbs in this game, the ability to pick up herbs and craft them into potions for the player, to scatter them around, so this was some good practice for that, but the actual plants and the way they look, the way they split up, just didn't feel right. Also there was a lot of shading issues, that are still happening now with the trees and bushes around the world, where they just don't look very good from a distance. So I decided to remove a lot of the bushes and just add these grass patches that will appear in small places. Now, a thing to remember with the way the foliage looks at the moment is this is just going to be the generic open area. There's going to be buildings around and just the path going through. This is the generic. There's going to be main forests that are going to be a lot more thicker with a lot more bushes and life going on in them. But in these simple open areas, I just wanted something to break up the simplicity of just the snow everywhere, especially when it comes to weather effects and the day and night cycle that will be added further in this devlogs. you'll see that it all comes together and it will make a more natural and genuine world, where there are some areas that are just pretty plain, just pretty open, though I do want everything to be detailed. I want there to be a lot of options where if you just go off and explore, you will eventually find something that's interesting and that you want to go explore. Now, I know I've been talking a lot about foliage, but this is something that I wanted to get done pretty early, just so people can get the look and feel of the game that I'm going to make. But something I haven't really talked about that is kind of major for the game is how the game mechanics going to work, how the game loop is going to work, and what you're going to be able to do in the world. So the most simple thing to talk about first is the quest systems. There's going to be the Black Omen company that I briefly touched on in the last episode. They're kind of the mercenary company that own a lot of buildings in the normal realm and own a lot of the mercenaries that run around the northern realm. These are going to be a main part of the main quest line, and it's going to be the tutorial, and the start of the game is going to be set in a Black Omen building. When you're in the Black Omen building, there will be bounty boards outside that you can go out and claim. These will be simple mythic quests. There will be fetch quests, kill a certain amount of enemy quests. The very basic that you see in every game that you can just do out for gold or simple resources. Just nothing fancy. There will also be contracts that you can get from the actual people inside the building. These are going to be more like thought out quests where there's going to be characters, there's going to be dialogue, there's going to be maybe 1 or 2 missions to each one before you complete the contract that pay a lot higher, more interesting and more story focused. There'll also be a lot of side quests from random NPCs that you can go along with. I want each side quest to branch out and kind of have a mini ending, so like a mini main quest line where you can branch off in different directions and come to different endings that will affect different NPCs in different ways. That way you feel like you're part of the world and your choices actually matter. And then finally there's going to be the main quest line. This is going to have the most branching options of any of the quests. I don't want it to just be like, oh, you're the hero, you're the good guy, you're meant to save the world. So I feel like it's quite basic in a game to do that, go, you're the chosen one and you're meant to beat this game. When in simply you can just go around and do what you want, make the choices you want to make, affect people in the way that you want to affect them in. Because it makes more of an interesting story that I think is more fun and feels more personal to the player. Now, the quest system's great and all, but how is this actually going to run? There's going to be dungeons and buildings around the place that you can explore or find through quests or contracts. Sometimes you might just come upon them. The dungeon's going to work in a way of tiers. Every time you enter the dungeon, the loot will refresh and the enemies will refresh, depending on what tier you are. So starting off at tier 1, all the loot and all of the enemies will be tier 1. Going up in tiers will increase the difficulty of the enemy type, and the loot that you will require, the loot that you will receive when exploring these dungeons. During the main quest line, the player will kill bosses. There'll be a set amount of bosses that will increase your tier each time, increasing the resources you get, the enemies you fight. The bosses will be different depending on which branch of the quest you choose, with a lot of different options. I've already planned this out based on my D&D campaign, so I know what kind of bosses we're looking at here, but I don't want to spoil that or give away, especially considering a lot of my players do watch these videos. Now, when it comes to the combat itself, there will be 3 classes of armour: light armour, medium armour and heavy armour, and about 3 types for each of those armour. There will be loads of different weapon types like daggers, hammers, swords, axes that you can pick from. All of them will start at tier 1 and you can tier them up. You will also be able to find runes in chests, especially at higher tiers, that you can apply to your weapons to give a different effect. So instead of just doing melee damage, you may do melee damage and fire damage. And different enemies will have resistance and immunities. The resistance and immunities won't come into the later tiers, to the point where in the main quest line they will be explained to you, just so for new players it doesn't feel like, why suddenly can I not kill this person, or why is this person so tough. It will be a slow introduction to these resistances and immunities and these different damage types that you can apply to your weapons. The tier system will just increase base damage, base armour, but each armour and weapon will have their own unique style, their own unique stats that makes every combination feel unique and different, so every playthrough of the game feels interesting to the player. Any leftover resources, of course, you can sell. You can use resources to brew potions. These potions can be put into your hotbar and you can drink them whenever, as well as your melee weapon, your ranged weapon. Ranged weapon will be very simple and mainly for hunting and just not a lot of damage, but very simple. There will be a magic system that I will introduce later in later tiers, so if you want to play a mage build or something like that, that's an option to you. I'm just not 100% sure how I want to do the magic system yet. So I know a lot of games do it really well, and a lot of games do it in a way that's very boring and very simple, and I want it to feel very powerful and very unique as you play through if you're using magic. The last thing the player can equip is charms. You can have up to 3 charms at once. Charms will be either active or passive. Passive abilities will just increase a certain thing, a certain stat, make you good at a certain thing. Pretty simple how a passive ability works, but there'll be a few of them to decide. You can upgrade these through the tiers as well if you want to increase the effects and make them stronger. Whereas the active ones are more like abilities, being able to do a certain type of attack or being able to do a certain type of spell for free. With a cooldown, of course. These can also be put into your hotbar, so you can use these kind of like abilities or just have them as a passive effect as you play through the game. During the second age of the Northern Realm, Slothium was used by the southern continents as a prison for those who had been mutated in weird ways that the humans saw as a threat. The Northern Realm was originally thought to be the bridge island between the realm of the gods, but this bridge was heavily defended by beasts of unholy power and dragons that sought to kill all in their path. As these mutant humans were sent here, they began to build a community and helped start as a refuge for those who were different and seen as evil by the rest of the world. As their community grew, they realised the danger of these lands. Though secluded to a small island in the south, they would send out adventuring parties to the mainland to search for supplies. Though many did not return, with an ever-growing population, they had no choice but to branch out and start making small communities around these dangerous lands. These lands were connected with small roads that are still used in the Third Age. Slothium was the capital of the Northern Realm for a long time. It was a safe island used to source supplies and hold gatherings. They would regularly ship supplies to other communities. The raids and bandits groups were common at this time due to the harsh conditions and betrayals of the smaller communities. Though the courage of the people pushed forward as they began to start taking in others who had escaped from the war and neglect from the rest of the world. As the population grew, a few main cities began to rise to power: Crotir, Terra and Ibihan. These were the early starts to the Northern Realms, as they managed to get control over the beasts and monsters with their new defences and strategies. As they were protecting these lands, lords began to form, with their houses of nobles and with the goal of protecting the people. Time passed, these lords helped supply the Northern Realm with resources. The land began to flourish, creating new cities such as Terthia, Agedor and Lazite. Until Norgod Sautis, the Lord of Terror, found a cave system hidden away in the mountains while expanding his city. These cave systems spanned the length of the island itself, with connections where the water above sat. This new world was filled with new horrors, and monsters that now awoke, crawling their way to the surface and spreading around the island. But he had awoke more than just these creatures. It was at this time that mercenary companies had become very successful, helping guard traders and supply runs to finding missing people or slaying threats to a community. This is where the Black Omen Company was first founded. The chaos of these new beasts created discord between the cities, and the Lord of Sophrion, Etrio Igana, declared himself king of the Northern Realms, building a new alliance with the cities that had once been lost. This is the start of the Third Age. But this new king did not last long, as something stirred beneath the world. Oswald the Wise arose, a mighty dragon with a large green frill. He tormented the people of the realm for years before destroying the great city of Slothion and killing the king in the process. Though he disappeared for many years after this, some believe he found a new home to hibernate, some believed he was dead. It wasn't until the modern era that he was seen again, after the city of Slothion was rebuilt near the old one. The new lord claimed he saw Osra in the ruins of the old city, and the Black Omen was hired for this job, sending their best warriors, Yandor, Durzek, Nalu and Amorous, to kill the beast. After some time, only Durzek returned, claiming he slayed the beast, but the others had vowed to it. He was gravely wounded, and his armour was melted in places from a strange acid. As time passed, Durzek retired from adventuring, and after the death of the old leader of the Black Omen, he took his place. Now, after I'd finished with the foliage, I had the raycasting system set in place, and I knew the first thing I wanted to make. With the main inventory system, that is going to be the first thing I make, I knew that I wanted to add tabs such as maps and quests, so I made a very simple just bar that shows the different ones at the top. They don't do anything at the moment, but these are going to be the things I'm going to be working on over the next few devlogs, just getting the base mechanics down so the game works and the loot works, and then I can focus on the quests and the world itself, the cities, make everything feel alive. I want all the gameplay mechanics to be set up first, so it's simple and fun to play with, before I make the world feel alive with the cities and the quests and everything like that. So the first thing I wanted to set up was the infantry system. Now, I have made an infantry system before using enumerators and arrays in a simple widget setup. Though when I made this, I was only in college and it was very buggy. It didn't work very well. There was a lot of mistakes I made that are very easily fixable. But at the time I didn't know how to do that very well, and I wasn't very good at debugging a lot of my work. So I wanted to make a system that works a lot better, is easier to add new items to and edit the data from the different items. That way, no matter how many items I make, they'll all be together and I can all edit them individually. I don't have to worry about the inventory system once it's set up. So I discovered, while looking up different ways of making inventory systems, a way of making inventory known as data lists. Now, data lists are like tags that you apply to different items. So everything that's an item has item, comma, the type of item they are, such as weapon, armor, potion, ingredient, craftable, book, quest item, and then the comma goes down to each item as it like branches. If you imagine like a big tree that branches with all the items, I'm sure I will have a diagram somewhere on screen right now that will explain what I'm trying to talk about. Then I can pull items from any of these tags and data lists, depending on how up they are. So tabs for the infantry, I can sort it by the weapons or the armor or the runes or the potions, and have all those items appear. And then for smaller searches for specific items, I can use those tags even further, and further down I go, the more niche of a item I'm trying to use, and that way I can access all the data really easily and edit them really easily. And I found a tutorial online that shows how to make this very simple infantry system using these data lists, obviously using the visual scripting that I'm using for this game. Follow the tutorial and made it. You'll see a lot of footage of that now. I was following it along, but I was also taking notes as I made this game. I needed to understand how this worked fully, so I could edit it and change it into the style that I want, into working in the way that I more envision it, make it more personal, make it feel a bit better. And once I went through and did that, I had to sort all the data, make sure it works with all the functions. Functions basically checking that, like, if you add an item, get all the items data, add it to this array, store all of it, make sure it's saving and loading using structures, connect it to the player using a actor component attached to the player, so that way I can pull the infantry system from the player character itself, rather than casting to loads of things to try search for it. And then constantly updating these, making sure if it stacks that it does stack the item. If it can't stack, it will make a new version. Making sure that it takes all the values with it, such as its value and its weight, so that if the player has too many items, that they'll become over encumbered. And sorting the system out just to make sure all of it works. No matter what happens, the functions will sort it out and make sure the infantry is working exactly how I want it. Now, the harder part, in my opinion, is sorting that into a widget, turning the array structure and that information into a visual piece on your screen that will update constantly, that you can move around and edit through multiple instances. And that did take me a while, and it's what I've been working on these last 2 weeks. I thought it'd only been a week, to be honest, because of how long I spent trying to do this, and I still have not finished it, unfortunately. This is probably the most important part of the game, and to make sure that it's working the way exactly how I want it to work, it's more personalised and different to the way I learnt how to do it. It has been a lot of work, but some of the stuff I did to test to make sure the inventory system works is I made some simple items that you can just walk in to pick up, or you can click the E to raycast into them and pick up the item, as well as some herbs using foliage actors, so that way I can use the foliage system that I've been using over these last 2 videos to place these herbs around the world, different rarities, so that the player can collect all the herbs. I'm still working on all the alchemy system, because I've made it using the D&D rule set, and I edited some of it for this alchemy system, but I really like the way I made it, so I'm editing it to a more realistic system that I can put inside the game. So I need to sort out all the herbs and all the potions, make sure everything fits. But that's what I'll be working on as well over the next few devlogs. And then of course the last thing I made was the chest. The chest, simply you open it and it will open the kind of a smaller version of the infantry, just a chest screen. This will work similar way for if you're looting a corpse, or if you're selling to a vendor. They will have their stuff on the left and you'll have your infantry on the right. The left is where the gear normally is in your infantry. So in the chest it will be randomized loot with a take all button, and the button, the slides for each item. You can click on the item to move that into your infantry, and then it'll be randomized depending on what tier you're in. The chest will randomise its loot each time you load into the level, so when you're in dungeons or certain houses getting those chests, every time you enter the loot will be randomised and be new loot, so you can keep going back to the same dungeons. But as the tiers go up, the loot gets better. The enemies will also respawn in the dungeons, so you can't really just do like a save load, grab the loot, save load, grab the loot kind of thing. Stop stuff like that. You have to go to the dungeon, clear the dungeon, get the chest, leave the dungeon, go back in, clear the dungeon, get the chest, which obviously is a way you can do, or you can just go explore all the other dungeons and stuff there is to do. The one item I haven't put in is gold, because gold is just going to be a simple item that's tracked for the player. And the gold will not weigh anything in this game, because I feel like making gold weigh will just hinder the player more than anything, and I want the game to still be fun while having that element of realism.